When you started solids, when I started solids, we all started with the right intention. But how did it end up that, half the kids today are picky eaters, right? Like, how did we get there? But there's so many
Yeah.
reasons that have come in, have led to distraction feeding. And I think one of the main things is that we've had this thing in our mind that our kids need to eat a certain quantity of food. Now, if you sit your child and they're like, we want screen, then what you need to do is you need to take small steps. Everyone, welcome to our fourth episode of the Modern Indian Parent Podcast. I am Sanchita Daswani. I am a pediatric nutrition consultant, and what I do is I help make mealtimes memorable. I help you make sure that your kids are actually enjoying mealtimes and making sure that mealtimes are just not a stressful place. And I'm joined with Rinie Gupta, who is a pediatric sleep consultant, and today we are going to be talking all about distraction feeding. Now, this is a topic that is a trigger point for a lot of parents because for all of us, it's always that balance of, okay, do we give in? Do we be strict as parents? What do we do? Or unfortunately, it's kind of become a norm, distraction feeding. So, in this episode, we are really going to break it down. What is distraction feeding? What are the root causes? How did we get here? And then also to understand what are some strategies, because I know as parents we want to do the best. What are simple things we can do to just change the way our kids are at meal times?
Thank you for introducing the topic for today, Sanchita. I think this is really worth discussing because I'll tell you, every day my kid has one meal a day that she's watching the TV for and then she's eating. That is usually like when she comes back from school at 4:30. Then the two of us sit together with a Disney movie. We watch it for 30 minutes while I enjoy my coffee. She sits and has her snack. And sometimes I wonder if I'm doing the right thing.
Mm.
Should I be keeping all meals screen free or is this okay? There's so much
Yeah.
confusion and guilt around distraction feeding. What's your experience like with this?
Yeah. And first of all, that's so cute. I love that because I also feel like that's just kind of the thing you guys have going on together. It's something you two do together. We are also parents, we are also moms. I am a nutritionist for kids, but yes, my kids do watch TV and eat, but the difference is that they don't need TV to chew their food. So my kids watch TV a few times a week. Sometimes also when they come back from school and they just want to chill and eat a snack, they're so tired, or in the evening, they come back late from a class, they need to eat their dinner and they're just so exhausted. I'm like, you know what? Just watch a show, eat your dinner, no problem. But I think it's really the extreme part that we want to talk about today to remind you guys out there also that we are also moms and we get it. It's not easy, and I'm not saying don't do it at all, but I think really I want to talk about today. We just want to make sure it doesn't have a negative effect on our kids in the long term with their relationship with food.
Yes. And I think just to set the premise here, as a nutrition consultant, what would you call distraction feeding? Like,
Right. So distraction feeding is when your child sits down for a meal, and in order for them to get something in their mouth, you need to use some another tool. You need to show them the screen. You need to show them the book, or you need or stickers, or someone needs to be dancing, or you need to tell them look outside the window so that you can get food in their mouth. So distraction feeding is when your child is not in control of meal times and they're not in control of what is going in their mouth. So a lot of people think distraction feeding is just watching TV, but it's anything, which is airplane spoon, which is dancing, because what we're trying to do there as parents is we are trying, or the nanny or whoever, the caregiver, we're trying to tell the child that don't listen to your body. We are going to decide how much is going to go in your mouth, and we are going to do whatever it takes to get that in.
so you're basically saying that distraction feeding or distracted feeding is where your
Yeah.
mind is elsewhere, but
Yeah.
you're eating. So you're not actually
Exactly.
looking at the food, focusing on the food, interacting with the food, because your mind is just elsewhere. Oh my God, the storytelling, I have done so much of it, right? Like there's
Look,
this
I've done it
jungle
all.
stories with
Yeah.
elaborate characters,
Yeah.
they're like plot lines and subplots. I've
Yeah.
done it all.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of people are like, is it a big problem? Because, end of the day, we all adults, we all eat ourselves. Like, who cares? Like, let's just get it in. So what I tell parents is that, look, if it's occasionally happening, it's not a problem. But it's if
Yeah.
it's happening for every single meal, unfortunately, there are a lot of kids, they will not open their mouth. They will not chew unless Coco Melon is playing. They will stop chewing until it starts again, and then they will chew. On a serious note, I have friends who are in this situation, and I have parents, a lot of my clients, who are dealing with this as well. So that's when it becomes a problem, because you then lose sight of the reason of meal times. You want your kid to eat a certain amount because you want them to grow well, you want them to be healthy, you want them to get the nutrition they need, right? But if we do this extreme way, studies have showed overfeeding have led to obesity, have led to long term issues. A lot of the sicknesses that people are facing as adults are based on how they ate as a kid, and it has to do a lot with also overfeeding. Of course, it's the packaged foods and all of that. So is it really a big problem? Short term, not no, but long term, it has an impact on their relationship with food, on their health. So that's why I feel it's important to talk
And how do you feel it affects family dynamics, mealtime
about.
dynamics,
Yeah.
or just when they're going out to restaurants and everything? How does distraction feeding affect that?
Yeah, because you know what? I think we've lost focus on what meal times are about. I always tell my clients, when it comes to meal times, what do we want? We want all of us sitting on the table, eating together, sharing about our day, creating memories. That's why all of us, we go out for meals, because that's where we catch up with our friends. But when it comes to our
Yeah.
kids, that's not happening. Instead, it's begging and crying and force feeding and overeating and tantrums, and it's completely opposite to what we want meal times to be.
I do see that in restaurants. Any restaurant that we go to, especially brunch timings, when there are more kids
Yeah,
out with the families,
yeah,
at least half the tables, when I look around, it is
yeah,
everybody is in their own personal device. But the problem is when it's a pattern, when it's a
yeah,
every single meal, every single day situation. And
yeah,
I think as parents, we know where when it's starting to happen to us. We know. So I'm saying that, like, definitely don't pass judgment on anyone, but
yeah,
I do see this happening where the trend is towards this. And you know what, it makes me a little bit fearful, because
yeah,
I feel that, let's say, when we went to college, we were able to establish such strong bonds with our
yeah.
friends. And even now we meet up over meals, like you mentioned, we talk, we are cracking jokes, we're doing this, we're doing that. I fear that when our kids go to college or school or whenever, their dining tables, they're going to be like this, like this, like this, like
Yeah,
this. They're just,
exactly.
everybody is going to be in their own personal devices, and there'll be no real life interactions. And that freaks me out. The idea of
Yeah.
that, the image of the world that's going to be for them like 15 to 18 years later, it freaks me out.
Yeah, and I think it does. And even for me, I notice that myself sometimes. Like, sometimes I am sitting with my kids and I'm on the phone. So I think even this episode is really also for me, for you, for all of us to also just bring that awareness, because we all are doing it. That's the modern age today. We are all on social media, on our phones. But I think, the most important thing is to first understand, how did we get here? Because, see, when you
Yes.
started solids, when I started solids, we all started with the right intention. We all
Yeah.
started with our kids wanting to have the best meal times and have this bond and eat themselves and, listen to their bodies. But how did it end up that, half the kids today are picky eaters? Like, how did we get there? So we all started with the right intention, and we still have the right intention as parents. But there's so many
Yeah.
reasons that have come in, that have led to this, have led to distraction feeding. And I think one of the main things is that we've had this thing in our mind that our kids need to eat a certain quantity of food. They have to eat a certain amount, and that means that they will grow well. That means we won't starve them. That way we don't have to listen to people, making comments about our kids, even their height and their weight. So I think that pressure that parents have had has
Yeah.
led us to do distraction feeding, because we're like, you know what, at least if they're distracted, we get that in. And it's more to satisfy our soul than theirs, which I think a lot of parents are starting to realize now. And I think that's why the first thing I do when I get on a call with my clients is I explain to them how much their child needs to eat. Because once you know that amount, or you know that for babies in the first year, you don't think of meal times as calories, you think of it as an activity. Once you have that mindset switch, you are not going to need that toy to distract them. You are going to say, you know what? Listen to your body. And you see that with milk. When a baby wants milk, they have it. When they're done, they're done.
Wow, Sanchita, that is such an amazing way of putting it across that for younger babies, you need to think of it as an activity. That is
Yeah.
something that's an idea that most people don't really realize, because for them it's just like feed, 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 because it's so
Yeah.
important for sleep, it's so important for weight gain, right? And you also mentioned this whole thing about the pressure. Can you elaborate more about that? You work with moms day in,
Yeah.
day out, and what are the kind of pressures that they are facing which is causing them to then get stressed and then do distraction feeding?
I really feel like for Indian households, you have two main sources of pressure. One are the nannies, and the other are the grandparents, right? And I think with every client of mine, they really come in very positive that we are going to do this. But I think the biggest struggle for them is the fights they have with the nannies, because the nannies are like, look, you've hired me and I'm going to do it this way. Your child needs to eat 125 ml of ragi porridge every day, and I will do what it takes to make sure they have it, because otherwise you are starving your child and they will not grow. So it's tough because you've hired someone and you have this person saying it. And then the other side, you have the in laws or the grandparents who are saying, how can your child just play with food? They put nothing in their mouth. Is this what you call meal times, right? So this pressure that comes in makes us question ourselves as parents. Are we not ready for baby led weaning? Are we not ready for all of this? Do How will our kids even know what they need? And I give a very simple example to all my clients. I say, imagine you're at a restaurant and the waiter brings you something you've never eaten before. Are you going to take it and shove it in your mouth? No. First, you're going to look at it, you'll touch it, you'll look at someone else eating it, you'll ask the waiter more questions like, what is in it? Only then, maybe you will try it. And even then, you might not finish it at that time. It might take you two, three times to accept it. But no, for our kids, it's the same thing because we bring them an apple puree. They've never seen it before, but we expect them to just gobble it up and finish that amount. And I'm like, we cannot have that expectation from our kids. It's a whole new process for them. So if someone's telling you your child needs to finish a certain amount, no, we need to give them time. And that's a great thing for babies. We have that space to give them time because they're getting all their nutrition from milk. And another example I give them is, imagine you're at a restaurant, you finish everything, and you have two, three pieces of pasta left. I'm sure you've been at a restaurant and you're like, I'm full, like you won't finish your plate, and you leave it. And imagine then the waiter, the chef, everyone comes on, stands in a line, and looks at you and says, no, you gotta finish those two pasta pieces. We're not leaving till you're done, and we're just gonna stare at you. We'll show you the TV. We'll do a dance for you, but you have to finish. And you're like, look, I'm telling you I'm done, but you are telling me no. So same thing with our kids. We have to trust them and let them learn that about themselves. And these examples really hit hard, and really help parents get it into perspective.
And basically, what we're doing with distraction feeding is that we are overriding whatever emotion that they were feeling. Like, for example, if they're feeling a certain, they're still getting used to that food and they want to interact with it. But when we bring in the screens, they're like, forget about interacting with it. This is so much more
Yeah.
interesting. And then they're just
Yeah.
mindlessly eating after a point. Or if you want them to finish those last two bites. So again, we're like, don't listen to your fullness cues, you know? Keep your mind elsewhere so that we can continue feeding you. And that's not great. Like, I can't imagine that being good for them in the long run, especially.
No. And for the long run, like, look at all of us. Like, most of us have gone to a nutritionist or a dietitian, and what is the first thing they tell us? Listen to your body and don't overeat. Because all of us have this issue because we were all force fed. We couldn't get out of the table till we finished our plate. So now as
Yeah.
adults, we're trying to listen. Okay, listen to your body. Don't eat till you're over full. And we can teach our kids this from the beginning. We are born with that innate hunger cues because you see it with milk. They ask for it when they need it and they're done when they're done. So we really want to foster that. So really, distraction feeding happens when we kind of lose sight of that. And it's not our fault as parents because we have too many things going on. And I think also you've also experienced this, right? Like as working parents and in today's world, we just want everything quick and fast.
Thank you for sharing the thing about grandparents and nannies and the pressure that a lot of moms are facing. But what do you feel about your experience of working with parents who are working? Let's say both the parents are working. What is their pattern of feeding their babies and their take on distraction feeding?
Yeah, I think for them, it's also look, I need to finish this quickly. I don't have time because honestly, our lives are very hectic today. So, obviously, if you're letting your child listen to their body and eat as they want and explore food, things get very messy. Things take longer. So, for a lot of times for us as parents, we're like, okay, let's just put on the TV for 30 minutes. We know they'll eat it up and they're done and we can move on in our lives. So
Yes.
I think for a lot of us, and I do feel like that's what I do sometimes. I'm like, you know what? Okay, we need to go for a birthday. So just put on, let's watch, finish eating, and let's bounce. So that also I think is a big factor for a lot of parents, and because life is very quick these days. So we kind of get into that groove as well.
And I feel at some point it has just become normalized because I had kids like 2 years ago, but I have seen my cousins have kids. And over the years, I had noticed that all children were eating while watching videos either on the phone or on the TV. And I thought, I guess that's just the normal way to do it. That is the way that it is now, and there is nothing wrong with it. So, in the beginning, when I did try a little bit of screen time and feeding, I thought that's okay. It was only later on that I found out the effects that it can have on the child with regards to overeating and this and that and everything that you've just discussed today, actually, the impact of distraction feeding, that I kind of scaled back and I was like, okay, no, we need to draw a hard line boundary here. That screens are not going to come into mealtime. In my head, when I was a new mom, it was normal. I thought this is the way to do it and it's
Right.
okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I think most people, especially most kids post to, I would say at least 70% of them, 80% do watch the screen and eat. Because it's just the way it is. And especially when we go to restaurants, we see that. And again, that's what I'm saying. It's not our fault that we've got here because of all this information we've been fed, of all the pressure of our lifestyle right now. We've kind of gotten into it because mealtimes can be difficult. It can be tough when your child
Yeah.
doesn't want to eat a meal. It's heartbreaking for us because we want the best for our kids, but we don't realize the other things we're doing are actually going to make it worse in the long run.
Yes. It's like instead of quick fixes, think about the big picture, think about what you
Yeah.
want it to be in the long run and then work on that. Sanjita, tell me something. I think we have discussed ample about what distraction feeding is, how did we get here? But now put yourself in the shoes of a parent who has a baby. We're talking about, let's say, an 8, 9 month old baby, and they're already in the space where the child will not eat unless they play a video on the phone, and
Yeah.
that is the pattern, that is the way the child eats right now. How would you advise this parent to break this cycle of distraction feeding and get out of it? What would you tell them to do?
Right. So I have so many clients who come to me with this exact problem. My child hates meal times, they're not eating. So there's few quick things you need to do, okay? Number one is manage your expectations. So as I spoke to you about earlier, in the first year of life, don't focus on quantity, focus on your child building the skills of eating. So, one, take that pressure off, lower the expectations. Okay. Number two is make sure the schedule is correct. So, make sure you're offering your child the meal when they're actually a bit hungry and they're not sleepy, because a lot of times it's a timing issue as well. So, make sure the schedule is okay, take off the pressure. The next thing to do is for babies, make them feel in control. You need to put food in front of them. You need to give them a self feeding spoon because they're at that age where they want to explore and learn. So if you give them something in front, because most of the times we hold the bowl and we're just feeding them. And we expect them to sit there and be like, yeah, sure, I'll just wait till things get shoved in my mouth. But I want them to see the food, interact, make it fun. So that is really important as well. And the last tip, especially for this age, is to model behavior. Eat with your child because it's a skill. It's like crawling and walking. They need to practice. They need to watch someone else doing it. Because if you eat with your child, they'll be like, that's what you do with the food. That's how you chew. If my mom is putting it in her mouth, it's safe for me as well. So I would really say focus on these four things, and you will see a big change in meal times, especially for under one.
And what about a child who's older? So let's change this up a little bit. And instead
Hmm.
of dealing with a baby here, let's say we're dealing with a toddler, 2.5 year old,
Yeah.
long pattern of only and only eating with screens. How would you approach that then? Like, how would you advise a parent to break this cycle and going towards screen free meals?
Yeah, so obviously, as they get older, I'm sure you know as well, it gets harder because, especially when they get to that 1 to 3 year, that toddler phase, that's when they want to defy everything. Their favorite word is no. They only want to run around. So, this is when boundaries really come in. And of course, it's been such a long time of watching the screen or even distraction. So, my kids were not watching the screen, but I was definitely using a lot of distractions. I was reading to them and all of that. So it was a bit of a mission as well. And so, what I would suggest is number one, with toddlers, they tend to eat throughout the day because what's happening is they're running around, they can go pick up stuff. So, make sure you have a proper schedule and they're eating every 2 to 3 hours so that they are hungry. A lot of issues with kids I've seen with toddlers, they're having too much milk, so they don't even want to look at food. And this also happens at night time. They're still waking up at night and having milk. So, first is schedule. Second thing I want you to do is make sure there's a safe food at every meal. Something it doesn't have to be their favorite food. Something they're okay with eating. So that at least will get them to the table to sit and they'll feel okay, there's something familiar, something safe. I know. So that okay, if they're hungry, they'll actually eat that at least. Now, if you sit your child and they're like, we want screen, then what you need to do is you need to take small steps. Okay. So the first thing you're going to do is maybe lower the volume a bit. Because the main issue with the TV is that they're so glued, like you call their name, they won't even know what's happening. Like become like zombies. So what I want you to do is
Hmm.
start lowering the volume. Because once you lower the volume, you're kind of they're losing that one sense and they can use that hearing for something else. So it's not like all their senses are focused on that. So lower the volume so they're only looking at it, but they can hear stuff, they can hear you, they can see, try and look towards the food. The next thing I would do is actually just eat with them. So same thing for babies, because at least if you're eating with them, then you make it some more engaging. Because I've noticed with most parents, when do we give our kids the most attention? At meal times. So that's when they want to act out, they want to defy, they want to get a reaction from us. But if you sit there and give them loving attention, you eat with them, all of that, then it will actually change the attitude and make them feel like, okay, I don't mind sitting here. And then the next thing I would say is use some fun utensils and cutlery. So get like their favorite plates. They love Mickey Mouse, get a Mickey Mouse spoon or plate. We have to make it a bit fun because it is boring for kids to sit there for 45 minutes and eat. So that's why they look for the TV, something else to do.
Hmm.
So I would say make sure you stick to a schedule to make sure they're a bit hungry so they'll actually be willing to pick up the food. Make sure there's a safe food. If they only need that TV, just start reducing the volume. Start sitting with them at meal times and eating with them so they can redirect their attention from the TV to you, and also try and bring in some fun cutlery and utensils so that they can actually be distracted with that instead.
Yeah, I think adding that element of fun is super important. Like recently, I got these tiny like animal
Yeah.
forks and poking every piece of it. And then I was just like, hey, do you want to have the panda bite? And now do you want to have the lion bite? Why don't you roar like a lion or you take a
Yeah.
big bite like a lion and show me how he does it? And we had the mouse spoon and we were like, okay, you know what? You want to try to nibble at it? So I think that was a very interesting, like, I think I got that tip from your account when I
Yeah.
saw it. And I said, okay, I need to try this out with my own daughter. And it worked wonders. One thing I would love to add in terms of the toddler thing is, and this is something that I see in sleep as well, is that once your child is getting fairly verbal, especially 2 years and above, when they can
Yeah.
actually understand majority of what you're saying, it's good to just talk to them. Just
Yeah.
tell them that like this is a change we are going to make. Prepare them mentally for it, that maybe from this day onwards, from tonight onwards, dinner time, it's going to be a family time, we're going to sit together, we're not going to watch TV anymore. And this would require us to analyze our own screen habits as well. It's important
Yeah.
to look inwards and realize
Yeah.
that are we doing the same thing that we are expecting our child to not do? And that is a good like way to see that, like, okay, you're not just trying to change your child's habit, but you're also modeling that and changing your own habit around it. So this could be great, because even in sleep we do that, and we're trying to make a sleep change. With a younger baby, you can't really explain to them what's going to happen, but with a toddler, you can really mentally prepare them for it, and they will handle that transition much better if you talk to them about it.
Right. Yeah. And I think the older they get, also you can tell them, say, you know what, mealtime, you're not going to watch TV. So you're setting that boundary, but then you don't say no. You say, let's watch TV after or before. Would you like to watch Peppa Pig or would you like to watch Paw Patrol? So what you're doing is you're
Yes.
setting a boundary, saying we are not doing it at meal times. That me as a parent have decided. But
Hmm.
we're not saying no, we will watch it. Would you like to watch it before or after? Would you like to watch this show or that show? So you're still making them feel in control, but you're holding that boundary. So that's what a lot of my clients do. They'll watch TV before or after, but they'll make it clear that
Yeah.
during meal times it's not happening.
Amazing. Like, I think that is such, like, that giving that autonomy back is so important. I did that mealtime, like, we did breakfast and then we used to watch a bit of TV after that. But then I
Yeah.
noticed that my child kind of like started rushing through breakfast or not eating enough, because she
Ah,
just wanted to go and move on to TV
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
And then I was like, okay, yeah,
Right.
I think I need to space this out a little bit more. Like, there
Yeah.
can be breakfast and then whatever bunch of activities, and then
Later.
maybe we do like TV time a little bit later. But that's a
Yes.
great strategy. Like, you're putting them back into control, and then you're also not saying that we're taking it away, we're just moving it
Yeah.
around so it's a little bit more acceptable to them.
Correct.
Fantastic.
Exactly.
So tell me, Sanjita, like, if you do mention like we have to prepare them, and eventually, let's say if our goal is to get to screen-free meals, right? Or majority of the meals are screen-free, how would you go about it? Would you do one screen-free meal at a time? Or would you just go cold turkey on all meals and say no screens for any one of them?
Yeah, so I think it depends on how strong you want to be, right? And I think in reality it's tough. So what I always tell my clients is start with snack time, because generally snack times is
Yeah.
like fruit, or like kids really like the food that's there, so they're more willing to eat it without it. So start with a snack time first, so that at least they realize, okay, this is the vibe. It can be fun. It doesn't have to be stressful. I'm not
Mm.
being forced to eat. And then you can work from meal to meal. So I would say take your time, because again, any change for kids, they are going to fight it back and be a bit upset about it. So it's okay to take it slow.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point to bring out, because, like, you're right. Like, it's possible that, let's say, if you're the parent who wants to do screen-free meals, you're probably not even the one feeding all meals because you're going to work, or you're busy with older kids, or you have other responsibilities. So whoever is the caregiver doing the meals, they need to be on board, and they
Yeah.
need to, follow through with that as well. And I think one thing is that I feel, no, even if you choose one screen-free meal a day, there is a very important element that we can miss out on, which is consistency. So let's say you choose that one meal and you go, okay, I want this to be no screens. And then you sit down and your child refuses to eat, or they throw a tantrum. And after like 10-15 minutes, you're like, okay, fine. I'm just going to turn it on because I
I
want to
know.
move on with my day, and you haven't eaten anything and I want you to eat something. And then what your child inadvertently learns is my XYZ tantrum or me refusing meals will eventually mean mommy turns back the TV on. Then that kind of defeats the whole purpose and takes you a step backwards in terms of setting that boundary.
Yeah, and I think even with sleep, you have to be consistent, because if they know you're gonna pick them up or give them the pacifier, do that. That's how they learn. They learn through consistency, and it's the same thing with meal times. To really just sum it up, I would say that distraction feeding, reality, it's okay once in a while, but I think the foundation for our kids, and that's why my clients who start solids, we really start with that strong foundation, to really expose our kids to foods, let them interact with it, watch you eat, all of that. So yes, when you go to a restaurant, sometimes you give them TV, even at home, few times a week, no problem. But as long as it doesn't become that correlation, that food and
Yeah.
screen time has to happen in sync, we're doing a great job for our kids and for their future as well. So it's hard as parents. I know, guys, it's really tough. Even some days I'm just like, just watch the screen. I'm also tired. But really, if we put in that effort, it's going to make a big difference to their relationship with food. And we will be able to raise much stronger eaters, healthier eaters who really are able to respect their body. And I think that's what we really want for our kids.
That would be so great. I think all of us really want that for our children, and this is a great way to get there.
So, for all the parents out there, the first step really to get rid of distraction feeding is to just make sure that we first understand as parents, how much do our kids need? Are they getting the right nutrition? And that's exactly where I come in, and that's where I help parents, because once you know that, you will be less stressed at meal times, and you will be more okay for your child to not finish that plate because you know they are getting enough and listening to their body. So I'm going to go ahead and link the details below so that you can get in touch with me if you need any help. And I will really, really be happy to help you guys.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I think we could use any help that we can get with understanding what we need to do at mealtime because they have just become an unnecessary source of stress when they should be all about fun. And I think one other source of stress that new moms like you and me are facing nowadays is this confusion whether we should do baby led weaning or self feeding, or should we just stick with spoon feeding or what they call traditional weaning. And you know what, parents? Next episode, we're going to break it all down for you. Sanchita is going to share with you everything that you need to know about which, like, what is what, like telling you all about what baby led weaning is, what traditional weaning is, which is a better option for you. And then you can make an informed choice about it. So do tune in for our next episode. It was wonderful having you here.